Now this, I did not expect. At Milan's 125th birthday party, the fans confronted the entire organization, the players, the coach, the management, outside of the party venue. We'll chat about which players were cheered, which players were booed, and how exactly our lovely management decided to deal with this entire situation. Now here's a little reminder of a few years ago, how the Curva was handling Paolo Maldini's management. How on the steps of Casa Milan, they were standing and cheering because they were optimistic. They had hope and belief that what this management was creating was actually something good. It didn't bear results right then and there. The fact that they were chanting wasn't because Milan had already won a title. It's because they felt like there was progression that was coming to this club. But today, at the 125th birthday party, there are some people talking about how, hey, these fans chanted last night. They protested last night against the club and the organization. But today, showing up to the party itself, standing right outside on the other side of the street and chanting for every player's arrival, the coach's arrival, it's a bit much. But I think, honestly, at this point in time, a wake-up call is needed. And the Curva is pretty much doing that. The biggest thing about this entire situation is nothing can escalate any further than that. You're just chanting outside the venue. Nothing physical, not throwing any objects, nothing. You're just making your voices heard because it's high time that these guys who represent a lot of us fans around the world who can't speak to this management and feel exactly this way, it's that what the Curva is doing, speaking on behalf of everybody who are sick and tired of the results that this team is showing. And just like in yesterday's video, we go from a top-down perspective. So right at the top, Gerry Cardinale, I'm not even sure if he was at this party or not. He was obviously not at the stadium last night, but the demands from the Curva Sud are pretty simple. Cardinale, you must sell. Now, who they think he's going to sell the club to, who's going to buy a football club of $1 billion+ in today's economic environment, I'm not entirely sure. But that chant is basically letting the owner know that, you're failing at your job. We're losing confidence in you. Basically, we've lost confidence in you. So pretty much sell the club or start acting properly. And from the fact that he didn't show up to the stadium for the 125th anniversary, didn't show up most likely for the birthday party, it gives you a little bit of a peek on where the owner's mind really lies. And I think this tweet from Martino is very telling. Multiple times in the past, Gerry Cardinale has come out and said that, hey, I want to be an owner like Silvio Berlusconi, like George Steinbrenner, who used to own the New York Yankees. These people, these past owners, would never miss their club's 125th anniversary. No chance. So in one breath, you say you want to be an owner like them, and then another breath, you do something completely opposite to what they would have done. And that's why you force the fans to start chanting these things. Then from the owner, let's move to the coach. Let's talk about the management at the end. But the coach, it was actually a muted response from the Curva Sud. They didn't boo him. They didn't cheer him. They didn't chant against him. They sort of just left him alone because I think they realized that when the management and the ownership group is hiring a particular quality of a coach, you can't suddenly expect somebody who I believe barely even made the Champions League in Serie A before to suddenly become a Scudetto winner. So the Curva, I actually have a little bit of respect for them not booing the coach because they sort of see that he's also in a situation that might be too much for him. And he also has a pool of players in front of him that aren't really performing the best. So with the coach, they definitely didn't want to cheer him, but they also refrained from booing him. And then we come to some of the players that actually received cheers from the Curva Sud. One of those players was a 16-year-old Francesco Camarda. When he came on, the Curva started chanting, we want 11 Camardas on the team. Because they recognize somebody who plays with heart for this team, who gives it his all on the pitch, who's 16 years old and doing the best that he can. It's not just about getting results. It's not about always scoring goals or assisting. Sometimes the fans just want to see effort, and Camarda gives them that. The other player with the same breath that was cheered by the Curva Sud was Christian Pulisic. Arguably, the one bright hope of this Milan management, the signings that they've made, has been Christian. He's probably got, 40+ goal contributions for this team in a season and a half. And again, with him, it's not just about the goals and the assists. I mean, he hasn't even scored a goal in Serie A in over 2 months. It's about the effort that he puts in. That's what the Curva is cheering here, that when the fans pay for a ticket to come see you on the field, you give it your all. You make that ticket purchase worth it. And Christian is a key piece in doing that. No matter what side on the field, the attack or the defense, he's going to give it his all. And I can promise you that's what the fans are cheering for. Not his goals and assists, but his effort, his heart. A similar response was given to Tijani Reinders. When he arrived, the Curva started cheering and even chanting his name. Fofana and Mignon, during their entrance, I think they came together. They were also consistently cheered by the fan base. Players like Zeroli, Musa, Pavlovic, Benacer, Bartesaghi, and Loftus-Cheek were, completely got a muted response from the Curva Sud. I'm a little bit surprised about Loftus-Cheek getting away with a muted response. I think at this point in time, if you're going to boo the rest of the players, he probably also deserves some boos. And amongst the players that were booed, Fikayo Tomori, Tammy Abraham, he showed up in his Ferrari. He was taking pictures with the fans outside, but the chants and the boos were pretty clear for him. There were also boos and chants for Davide Calabria, Marco Sportiello, and Alvaro Morata. And the chants from the Curva were pretty clear. Show some balls. Show some strength. Play with some passion for this team. Where's the heart? I do think players like maybe Tammy and Marco Sportiello may have been at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sportiello especially, I think he showed up alongside Calabria. I think he just, was catching strays there. The guy's basically been injured. He's not really expected to be doing too much sitting on the bench. So I think Marco Sportiello and Tammy Abraham, who's also been playing fairly well, at least in the recent past, may have been catching some strays because they showed up with players like Fikayo Tomori and Davide Calabria. But the fact of the matter is that the Curva was out for blood. They didn't care. You're with them, we're going to boo you too. Obviously, there were boos for a player like Emerson Royal as well, but the ones that probably surprised a lot of people were the boos that were directed towards Rafael Leao, especially because of the recent form that he's been in. But the chant that he got was the same as the one directed towards Calabria and Fikayo Tomori. Show some balls, show us some passion. And I don't think that's an unfair criticism. Yes, he's been scoring goals and assisting goals recently, but you still feel like you can get more out of Rafael Leao if he's more consistent and plays, through his skin for the entire 90 minutes. The one that was the most expected was probably for Theo Hernandez. Same chant once again. He showed up with his partner. He seemed a little bit, when you're looking at him shaking hands with people, he seems a little bit caught off guard. I think when those fans are standing there, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the San Siro, but when those fans chant and you're sitting far, far away from them, you really feel that. The sound sort of echoes inside the stadium, and this was a pretty closed space. So even when you're watching the video on your screen, you can feel the intensity of those chants. So a player like Theo Hernandez, he seemed like a little bit like deer in headlights, like what is going on? You can't even have a proper conversation with the people that you're shaking hands with until you go inside the building, because outside you can't hear anything outside of the chants that are directed towards you saying, show us some balls. So it's a weird space for these guys to be in, and the fact that they confronted them outside the 125th anniversary party, I want to know what you guys think. If that was overboard from Milan fans, or is that exactly the position and situation they should have caught these players in and made their points clear? And finally, it comes to the Milan management. Well, guess what happened? The Milan management found a second door to enter from. That's what they did. Look at that. All the legends enter from the front. They make the coach enter from the front. They make all the players enter from the front. But we will go from the side door. I never thought the god, Ibrahimovic, would be afraid of a few chants and a few jeers. That's a little soft. Trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate in this. Yes, they didn't want things to escalate. And maybe there was a possibility that if the management shows up and these guys who are booing Rafael Leao, who's actually been scoring goals, suddenly see Forlani's face there, Lord knows what might have happened. And maybe that's why they didn't, go from the front entrance. They didn't want an escalation. They didn't want a confrontation. They didn't want the entire story to become about that whole situation. They wanted to honor the 125th birthday and not make it about them. But the Curva, they're not going to sit quietly. For the management specifically, they said, those who didn't show up, this management must go. So there it is. That's our management. They're ready to take the applause. When Milan beats Real Madrid, as I mentioned yesterday, this was Ibrahimovic's tweet. But today, when you know there might be a few words directed towards you because of poor performance from the team that you have helped create in the recent past, you sidestep that. But when you win against a weak Real Madrid, you're front and center. The tweet came in a few minutes of Milan beating Madrid. And that's our management. That's the ownership group. One that doesn't show up for the 125th birthday, and the rest of them who want to show no accountability to the fans. The only positive spin I can put on this entire terrible situation is Mike Maignan might be staying at this club for a long time, as Daniele Longo reported that Maignan is set to renew his contract with the club till 2029 on a salary of $5 million per year. The hope now is that a long-term contract for Leao, for Maignan, there's some rumblings about a new contract for Pulisic, potentially for Tijani Reinders. I know Theo's going through a weak run of form, but I'm okay if Milan renews him as well. At least you have 4 or 5 decent pieces you can build a team around. And once again, guys, make sure to follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at Football Coach, where you're gonna see a lot more content coming up in the new year. And from my side, as always, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao tutti. Since Milan's dropped an anniversary jersey, and I got my hands on it.